In your name, Dark Amulet, witness me! Now that the DCEU has died with the lamest of whimpers, I think it'd be fun to jump back through time and identify what went wrong with this universe, along with what could have gone right. We'll start with the first 5 movies in this saga, which are Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. Also, side note, whenever I reference Justice League, just assume I'm talking about the Snyder Cut, because I think that's the one that is canon. Or was canon, I guess? Who cares? Also, I'm scared of CGI jaw Henry Cavill. As with previous Fix videos, this won't be a summary or commentary. Instead, we'll go movie by movie and jump straight into a few corrections that would have improved upon the foundation already built. Because I do think this universe did have a fairly solid foundation. And let me give my flowers from the jump so this video isn't all negative. Visually, this first phase of the DCEU is more appealing to me than what was currently going on at Marvel. Musically, I also find it more memorable than what was going on at Marvel. Everyone knows Wonder Woman's theme, but I also like Superman's and the grandiose larger-than-life soundtrack for BVS. I also appreciate that these movies were willing to commit to a tone that wasn't comedic, because that's my least favorite thing about Marvel movies. Now then, with all that said, enough with the glazing. Let's get to the fixing, starting with everyone's favorite neck snapper. Change number 1. Jonathan Kent. I like the idea of Pa Kent being a flawed person who stifles this version of Clark in a potentially misguided attempt to keep him safe. But I don't like the idea of him getting got by a tornado. I mean, come on, Clark could have saved him with super speed and nobody would have even seen it. Especially not with the shoddy cameras we lugged around back then. So let's adjust. Let's say that in Smallville there's a chemical fire at an industrial plant. And while Clark Kent isn't around, Jonathan Kent is. So Pa Kent goes in, and he pulls someone out, then goes in again, pulls someone out, goes in again, and again, until everyone that can be saved is. But while Jonathan becomes a hero, he also becomes sick from the fire, so Clark has to watch his father wither away. This is similar to the comics where Pa Kent dies of a heart attack in that there's nothing Clark can do to save his dad despite his powers. And different from the movie in that before he passes away, Pa Kent can tell his son that it's not Clark's fault, that he loves and is proud of him, and most importantly, that he doesn't regret saving those people. Change number 2. Clark should attempt to save Krypton. There's a point in the movie where Zod warns Clark that if the ship they're on is destroyed, the remnants of their civilization will also be destroyed. And our hero's response is, "Oh, say less," as he proceeds to make sure the ship won't make it. That's a weirdly malicious response, even for this version of Superman. And as an aside, I'm fine with Clark not being pure-hearted. The DCEU's version is clearly closer to the New 52 incarnation of Superman than the standard heroic version. My preference is the latter, but I don't think all stories involving Superman need to be homogeneous, so I'm fine with alternates. That's a long-winded way of saying, yes, the Superman can get angry and be mean or whatever, but there's a fine line between acts of passion and acts of malice, and I think this instance of intentional super murder crosses the line. So, quick fix. Have Superman fight not just to save Earth, but also to save Krypton, and have Zod try to force him to pick a side. Clark can be naive in thinking he can do both, but I'd like to see him at least try. Because if we want our Superman to be heroic, then he has to actually do heroic things, even when they're harder than just punching someone really hard. Which leads me to change number 3, the final fight. Superman vs. Zod is basically a comedy skit at this point.
Did it, Patrick! We saved the city!
I get that in the heat of the moment Clark had tunnel vision, but this tussle is kinda egregious. So, let's fix it. How about, instead of this being a knockdown, drag-out fight, we realize that Zod isn't quite as strong as Superman due to not absorbing as much of that ooey gooey sunlight. In a one-on-one fair fight, Clark would give Zod hands like he's never seen before. But this isn't a fair fight, because Zod is causing so much destruction, and maybe Clark unintentionally is too. So the fight should be Zod trying to kill Clark and destroy everything around him, while Clark has to both fight Zod and save as many people as he can. That way, at the end of the fight when Clark proves that Zod truly has a weak neck game, it makes more sense, because it's at the end of a string of Zod's direct attack on civilians and Clark's direct attempts to save them. Clark can realize that he doesn't have the strength and stamina to continue with Zod's relentless destruction, so when push comes to shove, he ends it. Also, we can cut out the random civvies Clark saved and replace them with Lois, so those last few moments of tension are more impactful. Change number 1. The entire movie should be from Batman's POV. Okay, bear with me on this one. Superman may be in the title of this movie, but his POV scenes actually detract from the narrative instead of adding to them. We don't need to see him get in the bath with Lois or go to a court hearing that's actually a trap, or definitely liquidize this guy's bones, good god. But what we do need to see is Batman's perspective. Kudos to the intro scene, which I think is great, but the whole movie should be an extension of that concept. Have Batman check out the aftermath of Superman's raid on that African warlord's compound. Have him watch footage of Superman's heroics around the world and theorize that it's just a front. Have him drink Lois and Clark's gamer girl bathwater. I mean, investigate the crime scene after the court explosion. This movie does not need to convince us that Clark is human. It needs to convince Batman that Superman isn't. And we need to understand why he has come to that conclusion. So, we need to spend more time with him and less with Clark. Also, more time with Bruce should let us see more Lex Luthor, since they run in similar circles. And we can see Lex's influence firsthand and maybe even have him amplify Bruce's paranoia. Change number 2. Replace Doomsday. There's a concept that sometimes rattles around my head that I like to call the speedrun villain. It's basically when a superhero movie writer, or let's be honest, producer, doesn't have any patience, so forces a villain that shouldn't show up until later into showing up sooner. Case in point, Dormammu in Doctor Strange 1, Ares in Wonder Woman, Gore in Thor 4. Essentially, these are villains that should have been set up, but weren't because we gotta pick someone popular for our heroes to punch. Doomsday is the same. The death of Superman is about Doomsday running the gauntlet through the DC universe until Superman tries to stop him, at which point Doomsday says,
I'm not finished.
Love it or hate it, it's a very impactful comic on the industry as a whole. So to slot Doomsday into this movie as a last-minute punching bag is kinda... Let's save our beloved Cave Troll for a Superman sequel and replace him with Bizarro. Bizarro, for the uninitiated, is basically an imperfect clone of Superman. For our purposes, we'll just have him be Zod's body combined with Superman and Lex's DNA to make some sort of weird homunculus. Either way, this version should be active throughout the movie, off-screen. He can be doing bad things for Luthor that Bruce can investigate and blame Clark for. That way, Bats has even more of a reason to mistrust Superman. Also, the ending fight can be relatively the same. I know Bizarro historically gets stronger around green kryptonite instead of weaker, but
Shut up!
So that's it? What, we some kind of...
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
cut the squad. We don't need this many people. Having this many mouths dilutes how much characterization we can hand out. So let's shave.
This is Katana. She's got my back.
No.
One Elmok.
The Agneria.
No.
The hell is that?
His name is Waylon Jones,
No.
or as the tabloids call him, Captain Boomerang.
No. No.
Yeah, you can stay. Just to die though. That leaves us with Harley, Deadshot, El Diablo, and some fresh meat I'm adding. Parasite. Parasite has the ability to absorb life force from people via touch. He can then access their memories, powers, and mimic their appearance and voice.
Nope.
Having him will add a little more power to the squad and make for more interesting action scenes. Change number 2. The whole movie. The OG Suicide Squad was about fighting Enchantress and rescuing Amanda Waller.
No.
This version is about rescuing a VIP from a city that has devolved into a gang war. The squad is dropped into a conflict between two factions, Killer Crocs and the Jokers. That explains why Harley is here, and lowers the stakes to something less serious than the end of the world. The Joker can be the secondary antagonist who shows up periodically to try to capture and/or kill Harley, while Killer Croc can be the primary antagonist and final boss. That way we have a more grounded story that tailors well to this team's specialities. Also, the VIP the squad rescues and relocates can be Silas Stone, who is working on the Mother Box that will later appear in Justice League. Thus, the two movies are linked and the universe is happy. Change number 1. Modify the gods. In Wonder Woman, we learn that the entire Greek pantheon is dead except for Ares. And spoiler alert, Ares dies in the movie. That's a waste, even if I get the intention. So let's fix it. The Greek gods can be dead, but their powers should not be. My concept is to expand upon the might of the pantheon. I think death shouldn't be death for a god, at least not forever. It's more interesting if death for the pantheon means that their consciousness erodes and they become embodiments of what their powers were. So maybe Poseidon becomes the magical abilities that the Atlanteans use, and Hermes becomes the Speed Force. Stuff like that can explain this universe's power system in a way that's palatable for your general audience. Also, I like the concept of the gods, Greek or otherwise, being unable to fully die. Instead, they embody whatever element their essence has become for a few centuries. Then they reincarnate, first in pieces among many different peoples, then eventually as one entity that consolidates the totality of their power. That's a huge lore change and lore dump, but what does it have to do with this movie? Well, change number 2. Ares. Ares in the original movie wanted to kill humans because they're bad, which is fine, go off king. But my version of Ares wants to create mass chaos so he can kill whatever avatars of other gods are out there, including his own, until he can eventually find a way to target new godly avatars for preemptive destruction. That way he can rule in perpetuity as the only god. He believes war is the best embodiment of humanity, thus making him the best candidate for their sole deity. This shifts his motivations to something more tangible than mass extinction, while still tying into the movie's themes of mankind's morality. Also, in the OG movie, Diana is a daughter of Zeus, but for this version I'd either make her a daughter of Ares, or make her a regular Amazonian that's an avatar of Ares. Either way, the two should be connected by godly power. Change number 1. Recast The Flash. I know their crimes weren't out yet, but Ezra Miller has turned out to be poison to whatever film they're in. So, since we have the power of time travel, let's go back and recast them with someone a little cleaner. Jonathan Majors is my pick for The Flash. I know he doesn't look like the character, but I picked him for his squeaky clean record. With him in the role, we don't have to worry about any sorts of crimes or controversy. We'll be A-OK forever. Change number 2. Nerf Superman. To me, Clark Kent's greatest quality isn't his strength. It's his jawline.
Oh my god! What is that?
Clark's greatest quality is his heart. It's his willingness to believe in the good in everyone and his desire to bring the best to the world. So positing him as this god among heroes who invalidates the rest of the league is, to me, silly.
Hell no!
Daddy, yes!
So let's make Superman weaker. Ideally, I think Clark should be weaker than Diana but more durable, stronger than Aquaman except underwater, and slower than anything other than a severely inexperienced Flash. Now some of you are probably like, what about Cyborg?
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care.
Making Superman less makes the other heroes more, and explains why they're part of the team instead of just Clark's sidekicks. So for Justice League 2, we actually have a reason for a team-up. When I look back at these changes holistically, I see a universe with a little more going for it. The unifying thread between these adjustments is that they don't fundamentally alter these stories, but they do fundamentally improve this saga. They make it deeper and more engaging by shifting characters or concepts around incrementally, which hopefully lets you in on what I think of this universe. That it wasn't that bad. We didn't need to break the DCEU in order to fix it, we just needed to tweak what was already there in order to build something better. And that's kind of disappointing because it's indicative of how much potential this project had. But, as wise men once said,
It is what it is.
That's it for this one. Like and subscribe because I've got movie rewrites, essays, series fixes, and whatnot in the works. And until the next one, cheers!